History is written by the victors. Now, that quote is normally associated with this guy, Winston Churchill, though apparently there's no actual evidence to say that he said that at all. Anyway, you've probably heard this at some point in one of your high school history classes, probably with a history teacher warning you against all the biases you might find on social media or the news cycle or any books you might have read. But I just wanted to ask, is that still true today? Is history still written by the victors, or is social media providing a more democratic way of how we remember and forget the past? Let's move on. It is cold, but the sun is shining and Big Ben is chiming. What a lovely day. I essentially wanted to talk to you about one of my favorite books called An Inventory of Losses by Judith Schalansky. It is an amazingly written book. It writes like beautiful storytelling, and essentially in it, it's a repository and collection of things lost to time. Think like the extinct Caspian tiger or a Pacific island swallowed up by the ocean. In it, she talks about the duality between remembering and forgetting. You can't have one without the other. There are cracks in time, things that fall through, and we end up re-remembering what we used to remember. I thought I'd read you one of my favorite quotes. The earth itself is, as we know, a heap of rubble from a past future, and humanity the thrown together, bickering community of heirs to a numinous yesteryear that needs to be constantly appropriated and recast, rejected and destroyed, ignored and suppressed, so that contrary to popular belief, is not the future, but the past that represents the true field of opportunity. Anyway, I thought I would bring you to a new location and we'd have a look at some pretty cool things. Okay, so we're currently in Canary Wharf. We're about to go to our final stop in this video, but before that I thought I'd like to talk to you about what Judith Schalansky is essentially saying. She is essentially saying that the past is woven for the needs of the present, and a lot of that is due to the powers that control us. I mean, if you think about it, the government controls our museums, our history textbooks, our news cycles, so of course they're going to be at the center of why we remember and forget certain parts of the past, right? Not necessarily the case anymore. When we think about the history being written by the victors, we're essentially talking about what social anthropologist Paul Connerton says is repressive erasure. This is essentially the erasure of peoples throughout history, whether that's through the literal destruction of material heritage, think book burning in World War II, or even the defacing and destruction of historical monuments, or it can be the silencing of people throughout history. The latter can be found in the case of Great Zimbabwe, which is located in Southeast Africa. It's this beautiful, immense, stone-walled city that is interpreted by archaeologists to be the center of an ancient gold mining industry. But when early European colonial expansionists went to the site, they essentially thought could not possibly be the local Shona people's ancestors who built this site. So they attributed it to a now extinct race of humans called the Semites or the Hamites. I just wanted to add the repressive erasure also allowed colonialism to happen more easily, because by reducing the locals to primitive to savage, essentially allowed people to have more obligation to come in and take power. Current archaeologists working with the local communities are working towards reframing this narrative, finding out from archaeological data what the truth is. They've now found out that it was the ancestors of the local Shona people. Not a big surprise there. And we're going to move on to the next case study that I wanted to show you in the Museum of London Docklands, probably one that you were probably already familiar with. So let's go. Docklands. It is an amazing museum. If you want to go in, it's free. What I really wanted to talk to you about is what's behind me, which is this plinth that used to house the statue of slave trader Robert Milligan. This was taken down by authorities in 2020 following the Black Lives Matter movement across the world, and particularly in response to the actions taken by protesters in Bristol, where activists ended up toppling down the statue of slave trader Edward Colston as a response to all the police brutalism happening across the world. Essentially, the past in this sense is being appropriated for the needs of the present. Instead of the statue commemorating this horrific time in history, it's instead being toppled down and used as a symbol of black resistance to everything happening in the world. It's not an erasure of the past. The toppling down of the statue is not us choosing to forget these ugly moments in our history. Rather, by taking down these symbols of oppression, we also end up prompting discussions of what is currently happening in our day-to-day and lifting up the stories, remembering the people who lost their lives to enslavement, to racism, and the current day activists who are seeking to resist it and reclaim their stories. Destination in this video, and I thought I would bring you across the Thames, where there is an amazing stretch of Thames foreshore. If you've ever had a chance to walk down the foreshore, it does look a bit grubby. The river ends up washing up stuff that has been accidentally thrown in or intentionally thrown into the Thames throughout history. So you get these amazing little pockets of tile and little artifacts. You cannot pick them up without a license, I'm just going to say that now. But it essentially wanted to lead me on to my final point, which is how the past and our understanding of the past can bring up these feelings of empathy for present day people. When I look as an archaeology student at past artifacts, I end up likening it to the objects that I have in my life. When I see a rim of an old pot, I think about my favourite mug at home with the chipped rim. When I see an old Roman comb, I think about my own comb at home and how long it takes me to take out tangles out of my hair. I end up reminiscing about the past peoples who used to use these objects and what it meant to them. It gives me a glimpse into the lives of ordinary people, like us, like you and me. When we look at these objects, we're thinking about people who have been lost to time. We're essentially dealing with a form of trauma, a form of grief, a form of loss. When I think of the Caspian tiger that's now extinct, I think about all of the people, animals who have lost their homes to climate change. Or I learn about old wars in history. I think about the people who are currently losing their lives, losing their children, losing their families in places like Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Ukraine, and countless other places. It's like when you read a book and it reminds you of the humanity within all of us. The past is not a distant place, it is very much rooted in the present. We all go through the same things because we're all human. We all love, we all laugh, we all cry. And the past is a place where we can reflect on our present. Anyway, brings me back to my final point. Is history written by the victors? I'm not entirely sure what the answer is to that. There's still a lot of things in terms of censorship, and now with social media algorithms, I'm not entirely sure we do have control over everything, but we still have a voice. We have more of a voice than ever. And so when we tell our stories, when we put our thoughts and opinions out there, let's think about, are we putting forth the right ones? Are we saying things we actually want to say? Anyway, that is the end of my video. I hope you enjoy. I hope you come visit the really cool places that I went to today, and I hope you have a lovely day. Okay, bye.